YouTube said that instead of 4,000 hours of watch time, now you have to have 8,000 hours of watch time to get monetized. So instead of giving up, I am going to be making more content. So pretty much, this is what I'm doing as a creative writing major at my university. I'm going to Cal State San Bernardino. You know where that's at? I'm not gonna tell you my schedule, so you follow me. Here's what I do kind of as a creative writing major. I really enjoy reading stories by Black writers, Black American writers, Caribbean immigrant writers, Chicana, Chicanx, LGBT writers. I enjoy that kind of stuff. So, I was taking English 30/30 last semester. I'm just coming back from summer this month, so I'm coming back to school really soon. So let's kind of review stuff that I studied. Alright, so I took English 30/30 last semester, and one of my assignments was to do a prose assignment to pretty much review a story. The story I picked a comic book, because honestly, the nerdy girl stuff is real. I chose to New Ultimate Spider-Man 2020 issue number 1. I chose this and I kind of compared it to another story. The New Ultimate Spider-Man issue number 1 is pretty much a villain went back in time and made sure that Spider-Man never got bit by a spider. And now he's married to Mary Jane. He has a daughter, but Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, he becomes the owner of the Daily Bugle. That's the newspaper that Spider-Man tries to do. I just spoiled the whole thing, but yeah, pretty much Peter, he goes home to Mary Jane. He's like, oh, I'm so upset that I can't do anything because the Kingpin is now my boss, and either I have to do what he tells me to, which makes stories that make him look good, which means selling out to a criminal enterprise, or quit my job and not work. Mary Jane tells him look, Tiger, I know you're gonna do what's right. I'm giving you the chance. I'll hold off on things until you figure out what you want. MJ is pretty much being the perfect wife, the perfect partner. Not perfect, but a lot better than most people expect from relationships right now. You can still find relationships like that. They're just, you have to be very picky about who you spend time with romantically. But yes, relationships like that can still exist. It's not going to be exactly like that. Peter Parker goes out and then he gets this message from Tony Stark from a different universe where he was Spider-Man. He chooses, hey, do you want to become a brand new hero, or do you want to keep the life you have right now? And he gives him a little box. Peter Parker crushes that box and becomes Spider-Man. That box had a radioactive spider, the same one that turned him into Spider-Man. And so for the prose assignment, what I was doing was comparing that book by How to Tame a Wild Tongue by Anzaldúa. And in Anzaldúa, she's a Chicana woman. She's at a time where Mexican women in America are expected to be very submissive to their Mexican husband. But she's Chicana because she was born in the United States. But all of the family before her is directly from Mexico. So she has to grow up with the be submissive to your husband mentality, to the point where even her teachers tell her to do that. She is expected to use proper Spanish, which at that time, all the active pronouns, you're a driver, all that, it has masculine pronouns. So she can't see herself as someone who can be these things because there isn't a feminine pronoun for these big things. Like astronauts that has a male pronoun. There is no female pronoun at this time to describe things she wants to do. She wants to be a writer? Sorry, that only has a male pronoun in Spanish. So the Mexican teachers in her life force her to try and be more submissive and listen to men, even when they're patriarchal and they don't have her best interest in mind. I compared these two, Ultimate Spider-Man and How to Tame a Wild Tongue. Obviously, because How to Tame a Wild Tongue, it was her challenging the Mexican pronunciation. That's where LA style Spanish started coming in. And the older Mexican people were saying like, oh, why are you making this new slang for Spanish? And she's like, oh, it makes me feel good to use that type of Spanish. They're like, no, you're wrong. You should stay home and have kids. And she's like, no, I want to be a writer. I want to do this. She's Chicana. I am also Chicana, Mexican American, first generation. I don't really talk about that much just because I'm still kind of an outsider, because I was like the weird Mexican girl growing up. I'm trans. A lot of Mexican people, they lead the Spaniard way, only two genders, where indigenous communities had more than one gender, or gender was not based off your physical anatomy. There were AMAB people that were wives in indigenous communities. I'm not saying indigenous as like, oh, just in the United States. No, across the entire world has indigenous people. If you think I'm only talking about a specific group of native people, that's wrong. Indigenous eclipses the entire world before these big patriarchal Western styles of living. Even before there was this women have to stay home and men have to work. Before that, there was a time before that. Before that, it was farming communities. The man and the woman in those situations, there are other genders, but in those situations, the man and the woman, they would both work on a farm. Literally, they would both do the same jobs on the farm. They would have kids, so their kids can add to the farm as well. And that was pretty much for patriarchy. Pretty much everyone just worked on their farm. Women carried heavy loads, men carried heavy loads. There is these internal gender identities that is more based off how you were socialized. I compared these by they are both fighting the system. Peter Parker is fighting the system because he has to fight against Wilson Fisk. And that will be more relatable to people who are working today. Because let's say you're working for the president of a specific country or of a specific group of people, and someone got into that position that has tried to cause you harm before, and now they're your boss. That's pretty much where these stories of control over you, taking away your control over your life and your well-being, kind of creates this narrative that you have to become your own hero, or you have to be the hero for others because you don't like the way you're being treated, so you have to help other people not being treated that way. And they both, Anzaldúa and Peter Parker, they both go through that. But Anzaldúa does have some differences between her and Peter Parker. Peter Parker is kind of being the traditional man. He has a job, and so does Mary Jane. But Mary Jane, when she comes home from her job, she takes care of the kids. And then when Peter Parker comes home, he takes care of the kids. It's not really patriarchal. Even though in these stories there usually are gender roles, they're not entirely exclusive. Especially with some of the costumes that some of the male superheroes are wearing. Yes, like if you've seen the previous movie where there was the Spider-Man enemy who was flying around, his costume looked a little bit more feminine and androgynous. So yes, Spider-Man is kind of turning away from that patriarchy, while Anzaldúa is directly attacking the patriarchy. That's some of the stories. Anzaldúa also, she's a lot younger. She's like in high school or college, and Peter Parker already has kids and a wife. If Wilson Fisk never became president or never became president of the Daily Bugle, Peter might not have been forced to become Spider-Man. He might have just gone his entire life, and that evil villain who stopped him from being Spider-Man would have won. But future Tony Stark from a different universe gave Peter that chance. He waited until the right moment and said, hey Peter, take this. And he did it. Peter did it. The prose assignment, it's MLA format. I put it on Google Docs because if you didn't know Google Doc, you could transfer it to a Word Microsoft file without paying the Word Microsoft subscription fee, which for a college student, that's awesome. So if you're a college student that needs to write papers or take notes, Google Docs. If you're a YouTuber, Milanotes and Obsidian. But if you're a creative writing student, English student, science student, pretty much Google Docs is all the way. You could save photos, videos, everything you gotta do. Some of the few issues I had with my first draft of the essay was my formatting. I did not format the proper dates. I have to remember my end quote. Some of the formatting got messed up when I transferred it from the first draft to the second draft. Usually when I'm studying and writing, I'll have one draft, then two drafts, then I'll have a third draft, which is usually the final draft, which I'll do. First draft, then the second draft, I'll show it to the professor before it's due. He'll say, oh, you can do this to make it better and get a better grade. And the third draft is the one after he checked all the notes, everything. I'll have it printed out and he'll pretty much write little notes on it with a pencil or a pen, or he or she or they. I have had professors that use they, them pronouns. I've had professors that use she, they pronouns. I'm in a liberal state, which I enjoy because I'm leftist. I'm more leftist rather than liberal. I want everybody to be taken care of. I don't really format myself in the two-party system. I'm not really a Democrat or a Republican. I kind of have a mind of my own. I'm a trans woman, but I like to dress like a librarian, like a female librarian. So yes, I'm still a little bit conservative. I wouldn't say conservative, I would just say I'm not gonna say older, because a lot of people use older as an excuse to keep certain bad habits about how you talk about people. A lot of times people will say, oh, they're older. They use it to excuse racism or to excuse transphobia or homophobia. I will never say I am an older person so I can get away with saying certain things. I am not gonna say that. I'm gonna say I just think for myself. As a trans woman, when I first started transitioning, I was more on the androgynous side because I didn't have access to electrolysis or hormones, so I kind of used they, them pronouns for a while. I knew I was a trans woman, but being part of the community where I'm from and growing up in the city where I am from, at the beginning it would be very hard to do because I had a full 5 o'clock shadow after shaving like 30 minutes before. I'm a creative writing major. That is a very leftist major. People are gonna say there is no future in creative writing. You could be a high school English teacher. You could be an online teacher. You could be a content creator for a specific company. You could write scripts for movies, commercials, everything, because you understand the format and you can actually turn in the script in the exact format that is expected of you. There's standard manuscript format, which is for writing a book. There's plays, you can write your own play. You can write scenes. I wrote scenes for one of my last classes. Writing a scene is really fun. It was a mix of fiction and my personal life. I might read out some of my previous assignments for previous classes. I'm not gonna use my legal name or my professor's name. I'm just gonna read out the assignment, how I read it. This video is actually gonna go up today actually. I'm just gonna edit it real quick and I'm gonna post it. I'm gonna post 2 videos like this